When I first began collage, I started with a handful of magazines from the early aughts and a dream, and it was enough. I felt that I was brimming with creative possibilities. So, what happened? Hi friends, welcome to my studio. I'm Jess, I'm a collage artist, and I'll tell you what happened. Material overload. Overlord? Okay. Material overload. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not creating any art right now, but what I am saying is that the more books I've collected to feed my art has had the opposite effect. Instead of being excited about all of the opportunities, I look at my bookshelf and feel overwhelmed. And what's sort of interesting is that same feeling of overwhelm hits me whenever I try to paint or sketch. In those mediums, you're really only limited by your own proficiency in those skills. The world is at your feet. You could make anything, and to be perfectly honest, that just stresses me out. And I suppose I worry that this is a failing of mine, and maybe I'm using collage as a bit of a crutch to not feel that anxiety. At the same time, it's been great for me to decompress with collage and to get into the studio and create without feeling those pressures. I suppose that another, maybe more charitable way to put this is that I like collage so much because it feels more like a conversation that I'm having with the pieces. I'm not alone in what I'm making. I'm guided by what's in front of me, and I'm able to respond to those pieces, and it feels oddly more like a conversation than outright creation. So after doing my initial sweep through some of my go-to books for backgrounds, I pulled out this early aughts magazine, and I started pulling out some of the pieces that originally inspired me. I remember this image of this lady wearing sunglasses from way back when, and I absolutely wanted to use her in a collage today, so I cut her out carefully. She was pretty easy. No flyaway hairs like I have to deal with. Her head is a little cut off, so I did need to think about what I was going to do about that. But after I got her cut out, I decided that I would try removing the reflective lens of her sunglasses to either put something inside or maybe have the background show through. There's that saying about the eyes being the window to the soul, and I think sunglasses sort of expand the concept of the eye, so it's less of a window and more of a giant glass door. Point is, you can see through it, and you can get a glimpse of what is happening on the inside of the person. It's honestly a bit disconcerting, isn't it, that having more options makes it harder to get started. It's strange to think that abundance can feel stifling rather than freeing. Plus, as I flip through books, every page I turn is a decision point, and those points add up. Fatigue starts getting real. I think that's why if I don't give myself a timer, and I flip and flip and flip, I can sometimes feel more overwhelmed and frustrated than when I started. And when I started with just a few magazines and books, I had to use what was there. The scarcity itself sparked creativity. By collecting more books, the urgency and inventive energy has lessened. And that's frustrating too, because I really love my books. I don't want to get rid of any of them. At the same time, I have realized that having more options has not necessarily given me the freedom that I was hoping for. So maybe it is time to regroup. Maybe it's time to go through my stash and look at it with a more critical eye. And yet I am a magpie in a lot of ways. I enjoy the process of looking through books and that little flare of excitement that I get when I find a book that has beautiful images. Ideas filter through my mind in the moment. But by the time I'm back in the studio getting ready to work, I don't see the possibilities anymore. I'm not looking at the individual book. I'm looking at the small little mountain I've made for myself, and it overwhelms. I think this is why I have taken to leaving a few books and magazines on my desk. They become my go-tos, and in a way, I'm sort of creating a scarcity for myself. And yet, inevitably, I feel the anxiety of thinking, I really should use my other stuff, shouldn't I? I don't want it to go to waste, and I know that there are beautiful images in there, otherwise I wouldn't have the darn book to begin with. So guilt eats at me, and I go back to my bookshelf and I give it a look, and then the overwhelm begins again. It's a strange little cycle that I've caught myself in, and I know that it's possible to extricate myself. I recognize that this is a problem of my own making. In any case, this collage session where I used some of my original materials was really great because it brought me back to the beginning in a lot of ways. It reminded me of a lot of what I've learned and how I've changed, and it was a really fun project. I like this galaxy. I'm actually not sure what it is, and the way that it shines through her sunglasses. I played around with some of the pieces that I cut out and ultimately decided to ditch the space shuttle. It was a bit of a trick to figure out what the best orientation would be so that I didn't cover too much of the background, because I like this cityscape as well. In order to cover up the side of her arm, which was cut off as well, and to not have to necessarily trim more of the background, I used this cluster of Rocket's quote to sort of cover up that cut edge. I'd love to know how you deal with this balance of material and inspiration. Do you ever feel frozen when there's too many choices, or do you surge with energy? And can you teach me your ways? I want that. Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. If you want to hang out with me a little longer in the studio, then check these videos out. But otherwise, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, bye! See ya! Bye!